During the Sean Combs trial, public debate reignited, not just about guilt or innocence, but whether the women involved were real victims. Comments flooded social media and TV. They stayed too long. They signed up for it. And the inevitable question, why didn't they just leave? I'm not a legal expert. I'm not here to say who's guilty or innocent. But I am here to talk about abuse and why that question misses the point. Because these comments, they're everywhere, and they show how much we still misunderstand abuse. So today, through 4 powerful stories in film and TV, I want to challenge the idea that leaving is simple. Movies won't give us all the answers, but they can help us understand the truth. Sleeping with the Enemy is the kind of film most people recognize, even if they haven't seen it. Julia Roberts plays a woman married to a wealthy, controlling husband. On the outside, it all looks perfect. Inside, it's a nightmare. She plans her escape in secret, fakes her own death, starts a new life. It's cinematic, clean, and satisfying. It's also completely unrealistic. But here's the thing. Parts of it are very real. The fear she shows, the need to hide things in plain sight, the way her husband controls every detail from the position of the towels to what she wears, that's not overdone, that's textbook control. And yes, financial dependence plays a role too. She has no job, no outside connections, no money of her own. Her life is fully tied to his. That's not just a detail. That's part of the abuse. Where the film becomes fantasy is in the solution. Most victims don't get to fake their own deaths and start over in a small town with a theater professor. This is the version of abuse people are comfortable with. A clear villain, a helpless woman, a dramatic escape. But real abuse isn't that tidy. Most abusers aren't lurking with towels or growling in the doorways. They're smiling at parties. They cry, they apologize, they promise to get help. And most victims don't leave once. They leave and come back, or they try to leave and get pulled back in. Sometimes by fear, sometimes by love, sometimes by a system that gives them nowhere else to go. That's part of the cycle of abuse. First, the tension builds. Then comes the explosion, the outburst, the violence, the fear. Then, the honeymoon phase. Apologies, promises, hope. It's confusing, it's exhausting, and it's designed to keep someone hooked. The truth is, real abuse isn't just painful, it's trapping. And the more we understand that, the more we can move beyond the Hollywood version. Because even when a victim does get away, the story doesn't end there. Sometimes the fear keeps following them, and that's what our next film explores. On the surface, The Invisible Man is a sci-fi horror movie. Invisible suits, tech geniuses, and jump scares. And I know it might seem strange to bring it up in a video about real-world abuse, but underneath the genre, this film gets a lot right about what abuse actually feels like, especially when it continues long after someone escapes. The story follows Cecilia, a woman who runs away from her wealthy, brilliant, and controlling partner. Everyone around her thinks she's safe now, but she knows something's wrong. She feels watched, followed, toyed with, and no one believes her. The science fiction element, an invisible man using advanced tech, might be over the top, but the emotion behind it, that's real. Many survivors describe the feeling of being haunted, even after they've left. Of not being believed, of people saying, he's gone, it's over, why can't you just move on? But abuse doesn't stop just because the bruises do. That's where this film becomes so powerful. It captures the invisible parts of abuse. Gaslighting, when someone makes you question your own reality. Isolation, when your support system is slowly cut away. Hypervigilance, constantly scanning for danger, even when nothing's there. It also taps into something deeper, The idea that your abuser's voice doesn't have to be in the room to still be in your head. Cecilia's fear isn't just about her ex finding her. It's about him still having control even from the shadows. And like many real victims, she doesn't just have to escape the relationship. She has to survive the doubt of everyone around her. This movie shows how abuse can linger in the mind, in the body, and in the spaces around you. And it reminds us that just because someone left doesn't mean they're safe. In the next story, we'll look at a very different kind of abuse, one that doesn't rely on violence or wealth, but still leaves a person feeling helpless, confused, and deeply alone. Baby Reindeer is a true story, or at least it's as close as someone can get to telling their own trauma on screen. The series follows Donnie, a struggling comedian who meets a woman named Martha. She seems vulnerable at first, grateful, needy, harmless. But what follows is a slow unraveling, one that's hard to define. It's not a fist, it's not a trap, it's something stickier. Guilt, confusion, obligation, and emotional manipulation. And what makes it so heartbreaking and so important is that Donnie doesn't even realize he's being abused. That's the piece people often miss. Abuse isn't always about someone being tied down or shouted at. Sometimes it's someone using your past against you, your shame, your kindness, your silence. And because Donnie is a man, and because he doesn't fit the typical image of a victim, he doesn't ask for help. He doesn't even know he should. This story shows us what abuse can look like when it's built on guilt instead of fear, when the trap isn't violence, but the slow erosion of your boundaries. It also reveals something many survivors deal with, believing it was somehow their fault. That if they'd only been clearer, tougher, colder, it wouldn't have happened. That kind of self-blame keeps people quiet, and it keeps abuse going. Baby Reindeer shows us how trauma isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like uncomfortable silence, nervous laughter, a slow disconnect from your own sense of control. And it's one of the few shows brave enough to say, men can be victims too. Now that doesn't take away from what women face, but it widens the truth. Abuse isn't about gender. It's about power, shame, fear. And when we only look for one version of it, we miss the people who are suffering right in front of us. The next film shows what happens when a victim does fight back, and why that fantasy, while satisfying, can sometimes send the wrong message. Enough is the kind of movie that makes you want to cheer. Jennifer Lopez plays a woman who escapes her abusive husband, trains in secret, and comes back to fight him. Physically, emotionally, and legally. She wins, and it feels great. And if you've ever felt helpless or watched someone you love be mistreated, this story hits that nerve perfectly. There's a reason it's one of the most rewatched films about abuse. But there's also a reason we need to be careful with it. Because as good as it feels to watch, this isn't how most survivors escape. Most don't have time to train, or money to relocate, or a fight coach. Most are dealing with custody hearings, court delays, trauma responses, and fear that the next time they leave, they won't live to tell anyone. And the truth is, the most dangerous time for a victim is often when they try to leave. That's when violence escalates, that's when stalkers show up, that's when control turns to desperation. Enough gives us the fantasy version, and sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need to see the victim rise up and take their life back with their own hands. But if we let that fantasy become our model, we risk believing that victims who don't fight back are weak, or that staying means they didn't try. Real life doesn't move in straight lines. It loops, it hesitates, it breaks down. And that's why stories like this are best seen as hopeful fiction, not a blueprint for how escape actually works. Because when someone is caught in abuse, They don't need to be action heroes. They need to be heard, they need to be believed, and they need a society that doesn't expect them to punch their way to freedom. In the final part of this video, I want to talk about why all of this matters, not just for understanding victims, but for actually preventing abuse before it happens. We ask the wrong question when we say, why didn't they just leave? The real question is, why did someone feel so trapped, so scared, or so ashamed that staying felt safer than escaping? And if we ask that, maybe we can start to change things. Because once someone is inside an abusive relationship, getting out is hard. That doesn't mean they're weak, it means the trap is real. But what if we could reach people before they ever fall into it? That starts with teaching what abuse really looks like, especially the kinds that don't leave bruises. Control, isolation, manipulation. The little red flags that add up before anyone ever gets hit. If we can recognize those signs early, maybe we can help someone walk away before it becomes dangerous. And if we, as a society, actually understand how abuse works, we can stop blaming victims for staying and start helping them to get out. We can train ourselves to spot the warning signs, not just in our own lives, but in the lives of people we care about. And maybe, just maybe, we can build systems that don't expect people to handle it all alone. Abuse is abuse, whether it's coming from a stranger, a spouse, a partner, or a parent. It deserves to be taken seriously. Just because it's personal doesn't mean it's private. Just because it's invisible doesn't mean it's not happening. If these stories help us understand even a little, then maybe they can help someone find their way out. Or better yet, never get pulled in at all.